I gave her life. She gave her dog mine. I raised her alone. She couldn't even pick up the phone. The ache started behind my ribs, dull, like a stitch in my side that wouldn't go away. I stood still in the middle of my kitchen, one hand on the edge of the counter, the other pressing lightly to my chest. Maybe I'd moved too fast. Maybe I hadn't eaten enough today. Maybe it was just age. I inhaled slowly, exhaled slower. The kettle hissed behind me. I turned off the stove and poured the hot water over a bag of chamomile, letting the steam rise and fog up my glasses. My fingers trembled slightly when I picked up the mug. I hated how my body had started betraying me. Quiet rebellions, knees that buckled when I stood up too fast, fingers that refused to open jars, eyes that blurred street signs just enough to make night driving a gamble. But this felt new. I sat down in the faded recliner by the window and reached for my phone. Valerie's picture was still her holding Prince, her Pomeranian, wearing matching sunglasses. I hit the call button and waited. 3 rings. 4. Voicemail. Hi, sweetie, it's Mom. Just wanted to check in. I'm feeling a little off today. Nothing urgent, but maybe you could call me back later. I added a soft laugh at the end, as if to make it all sound silly. Unimportant. Love you. I stared at the phone long after the message. Sent. A part of me expected it to buzz right away. She was always on her phone. I'd seen her type out whole paragraphs without looking up from conversation. The tea cooled. Outside, the sun dipped behind the apartment building across the street, painting my window in gold and rust. I watched the shadows stretch across the floor until my phone finally vibrated. One new message. Sorry, dog emergency, RN, hope, okay. Call you tomorrow. That was it. No follow-up, no voice, no, are you alone, or should I come? Over. I read it again, then one more time, just to be sure I hadn't missed anything. I didn't cry. I didn't even sigh. I just set the phone down and stared into the now cold mug in my lap. The ache in my chest hadn't left, but I pressed it down, like folding laundry over a broken shelf and pretending it still held. I raised her on my own, taught her to ride a bike, to tie her shoes, to speak up in class. I skipped dinners so she could have enough for school field trips. I stayed up all night sewing her dresses when the budget ran too thin for new ones. I sold my wedding ring to get her through her last year of college, and now she couldn't even call me back. In that quiet moment, I realized something I hadn't wanted to face. Valerie still smiled at me, still called me Mama on Mother's Day. But something in her had shifted, slowly, over the years. A soft detachment. A shiny wall made of online filters and busyness and dog photos. And behind that wall, I was fading. I once sewed her a princess gown from curtains. Now I'm not worth a glance over a salad. The cafe was Valerie's idea. It's this cute new place downtown, organic, green vibes. Mom, you'll love it, she'd texted, followed by 2 heart emojis and a leafy sprout. I wore a pressed blouse and even dabbed on lipstick, trying to look less tired, less 64. She arrived 10 minutes late, in yoga pants and a hoodie that probably cost more than my rent. Her sunglasses stayed perched on her head as she slid into the seat across from me, phone already in hand. Hey Mama, she chirped, barely glancing up. So glad you made it. Isn't this place adorable? I smiled and nodded, waiting for her to put the phone down. She didn't. When the waitress came, Valerie ordered a kale Caesar with vegan dressing and a sparkling adaptogen tonic. I asked for a tomato soup and a grilled cheese. Valerie wrinkled her nose. They cook everything in avocado oil here. Dairy is kind of taboo, she whispered, like she was confessing a felony. I gave her a tired smile. Sometimes plain is good for the soul. Her phone buzzed again. She laughed at something on the screen. Prince just pooped on my new rug. Little demon, she said affectionately. But he's stressed. The vet says his stomach is too sensitive. I think he's reacting to the renovation noise. Poor thing, I replied, though I wasn't sure if I meant it. We used to talk, really talk. When Valerie was a girl, she'd sit cross-legged on our tiny couch, showing me her drawings. I'd listen to her dreams, her fears, her endless questions about the world. She once asked if it was true that Cinderella's mom turned into a star. That night, I told her every star in the sky was a mother watching over someone. I used to make her Halloween costumes out of thrifted curtains and lace scraps. One year, I stitched her a bell gown from an old tablecloth. She wore it like royalty. I ate instant noodles that whole week. Now she couldn't even look up between forkfuls of salad. I've been meaning to ask, I started gently, about my insurance renewal. The copay's gone up, and I may need to... Valerie's phone buzzed again. She glanced at it, smiled, then looked up at me for the first time in minutes. "Oh, wait," she said brightly, reaching into her oversized purse. "I brought you something." She handed me a box of organic turmeric chamomile ginger detox tea. The packaging was matte pastel with words like glow, balance, and restore in curly font. "It's amazing," she said. "I drink it every morning. You'll feel brand new in no time." I turned the box over, reading the ingredients like they might solve something. "It's kind of my go-to fix now," she added. "Natural is better, you know?" I nodded, the words in my chest retreating. I didn't want to ask for money outright. I hated how small it made me feel. But I needed the procedure. My doctor had been gentle but clear. Postponing it would be risky. "I might need some help," I said quietly. "Just a little. I'll pay it back." Valerie touched my hand lightly, her smile still soft. "Of course. Let's talk about it soon, okay?" Relief flooded me for a second. Then she added, "Prince's vet bill is due today, and it's like absurd, but yeah, soon." She went back to her phone, and I went back to pretending her smile meant something. Apparently, a Pomeranian's stomach lining was more urgent than my chest pain. The clinic smelled faintly of antiseptic and fake lavender. I sat in the waiting room, clutching a manila folder of my medical records and insurance forms, the edges worn from too much handling. My name was called, and I followed the nurse into the examination room, moving slower than usual. Each step felt like walking through water. Dr. Hamadi, a kind-eyed man with salt and pepper hair, looked over my latest scans with a furrowed brow. He didn't try to sugarcoat. "Dorothea," he said gently, "we really can't wait much longer. Your heart is compensating now, but that won't last. The procedure isn't major, but it's essential." I nodded. I'd already heard this. I knew it. "We submitted everything to insurance," he continued. "But there's a new copay adjustment. You'll need to cover the difference, $2,680 before we can schedule." That number landed like a punch to the chest, ironically where it already hurt the most. I nodded again, numb. "Okay," I murmured. I'll figure it out." I left the office trying to keep my face neutral, but my hands shook as I texted Valerie. I kept it brief, less guilt that way. "Update from clinic. Need $2,480 for surgery. Insurance changed. I'll pay you back." I waited on the bench outside, unsure where else to go. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Valerie." "Oh no, I thought it was fully covered? That's insane. I wish I could help more, but just paid vet bill this AM. Prince needed emergency scope. Here's a bit to help today. Then, a Venmo notification. Plus $60 from Valerie. Cab plus tea. Plus snacks. Rest up." I stared at the screen. $60 for cab fare and tea. Like I was a tired guest after a day of shopping, not her mother with a failing heart. The cab ride home was quiet. I didn't cry. My body was too exhausted for tears. I just kept replaying her message in my head, especially the emojis. The dog paw at the end, like a little signature of who really mattered. Back in my apartment, I lay down fully clothed on the couch. I couldn't bring myself to heat anything for dinner. My chest felt tight, but not dangerous. Just like something old and worn, pulling at the seams. The next morning, I opened my laptop and saw it immediately. Valerie's latest Instagram story. There she was, in a white veterinary room, cradling Prince in a cashmere blanket. A tag marked the location: Holistic Pet Healing and Emergency Care, Los Feliz. She smiled at the camera with tears in her eyes. $18K well spent. He's family, always worth it. Prince strong, fur baby first, 18,000. Chakisai. Number clanged in my head like church bells at a funeral. The comments were full of hearts and admiration. You're such a good dog, Mama. He's so lucky to have you. Glad you caught it in time. Doesn't matter when it's love. And there I was, reading it all with a worn robe and a cracked teacup. Love didn't look like this. Love didn't choose fur over flesh, emojis over effort. My hand clutched at my chest, not out of drama, but instinct. The pressure came sharper this time. I tried to rise, but the room blurred, then tilted. My phone slipped from my hand as I collapsed to the carpet. For a brief second, I thought I heard Prince barking, but it was only the kettle whistling, and nobody came. I woke up in a white room, alone, again. The first thing I noticed was the beeping, soft, methodical, like a mechanical lullaby meant to keep me tethered to the living. Then came the chill. Thin hospital sheets never held warmth, and the ache deep in my ribs. Dull, but steady. I blinked up at the ceiling. No one sat beside me, no flowers, no hand in mine, just the hum of fluorescent lights and the sterile scent of disinfectant. A nurse entered and smiled politely. You're stable now, Ms. Maris. You collapsed from hypotension and stress. Doctor says your heart's under too much pressure. We'll monitor you for another day or two. I nodded, voice caught somewhere between shame and exhaustion. Later that afternoon, I heard a knock on the doorframe. Permission to enter? Came a warm, familiar voice. I turned my head. Mr. Halverson stood there holding a small paper bag. My neighbor from across the hall, the one with the roses on his balcony and jazz always playing from under the door. I brought you decent tea, he said with a soft smile. Chamomile, not whatever dust they serve here. I tried to sit, up straighter. You didn't have to. I wanted to, he interrupted gently. They called me when they couldn't reach your emergency contact. Your landlord had my number on file. Of course they couldn't reach Valerie. I didn't bother asking if they'd tried more than once. He pulled up a chair. I'm retired now, but I used to practice malpractice and elder law. Saw a lot of stories like yours. May I ask, do you have anyone managing your medical finances? I blinked. No, just me. Would you be comfortable letting me take a look at your insurance documents? He asked. I hesitated, then nodded. Later that evening, he returned with a stack of printed statements. He looked tired, but there was a glint in his eye, half disbelief, half fury. You're not going to like this, he began. I didn't respond. I already didn't like any of it. There was a joint trust set up in your husband's name before he passed. You're listed as primary, and your daughter as secondary. After his death, she petitioned to activate her share early, citing urgent family needs. It was approved. My breath caught. She didn't mention that. She wouldn't, he said grimly. But that's not all. The withdrawals weren't for living expenses. I found records. She used most of it for elective IVF treatments, luxury pet care, travel, and digital branding services. Branding? I echoed, confused. She paid over $9,000 to an agency that specializes in growing pet influencer accounts. He replied. The Prince the Pawfect Instagram? It's not just for fun. It's her business now. I closed my eyes. I wasn't sure if the sting in my chest was physical or emotional anymore. She used my husband's legacy, I whispered. For a dog. Halverson didn't speak. He just handed me a folder with tabs marked in neat yellow post-its. Every transaction, every receipt, every signature. It was all there. I stared down at the evidence, my hand trembling slightly as I traced my late husband's name on the trust paperwork. He'd worked 40 years as a machinist. He died believing he left something behind to protect us. She turned it into content. When I finally spoke again, my voice was low, steady. Can we sue her? Halverson's eyebrows lifted. We can. I gripped the folder tighter. Then do it. She didn't hear the doorbell, just the sound of everything crashing down. Valerie's world was curated perfection. Filtered skies, matcha lattes, yoga poses in golden light. Every post came with a caption about wellness, energy, or boundaries. Prince had his own pastel-themed Instagram with photo shoots that involved lighting rigs and matching outfits. She had no idea the doorbell was a summons. The server handed her the envelope, camera crews catching the moment. From across the street, someone had tipped them off. Valerie's surprised expression, mid-sip of chlorophyll water, would become a meme by midnight. Inside the envelope, Dorothea Maris, V. Valerie Maris, charges. Financial exploitation, breach of fiduciary trust, elder neglect. Filed, public. Within 24 hours, the internet devoured it. Reddit threads exploded with screenshots. TikTokers read the court documents in whispery, dramatic tones. The headline, "Daughter funds dog's luxury life while mom collapses alone," went viral. Justice for Dorothea trended globally. Influencer watchdog accounts unearthed every questionable purchase Valerie had made in the last year, from $800 dog strollers to healing crystal workshops paid for through the trust. Valerie tried to post a response video. In it, she wore soft pink and looked directly into the camera, voice trembling. "I love my mother," she said, "but she hasn't been well. We've been estranged for years. I tried to help, but sometimes it's complicated. Mental health is real. It backfired instantly." Someone found a photo of Valerie and Dorothea at brunch, just 2 weeks before the collapse. Others dug up old interviews where Valerie called her mom my hero. A reply video from a family rights advocate stitched her apology with court receipts and hospital records. The comments turned brutal. She weaponized mental health to hide theft. She let her mom fall, then blamed her. Sponsors began pulling out. Pet brand deals vanished. Her follower count nosedived. Meanwhile, I stayed quiet. Halverson advised me to keep my head down, let the law speak for me. I did, but I read every comment, every message from strangers saying, "You remind me of my mother." My mom would have done the same. On the morning of the hearing, I wore my husband's favorite navy coat. I stood straighter than I had in months. Valerie was already in the courtroom, flanked by a lawyer in a suit that looked more annoyed than prepared. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I didn't flinch when they read the charges. I didn't cry when they showed the bank records, the invoice for Prince's $18,000 surgery, the $9,300 social media branding fee marked trust account. I didn't even look at her when they played the voicemail I'd left, just listened to my own voice, tired, kind, ignored. And when the judge ruled in my favor, granted full damages, ordered Valerie to pay restitution, and formally recognized financial abuse, I didn't cheer. I just nodded, slowly, like it was a door I'd waited too long to close. Later that night, Valerie went live. Her eyes were red. Her voice cracked. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she said. "Social media twisted the truth. I love my mother. I do." The comment section didn't believe her. Neither did I. She ended the live stream in tears, but I didn't watch the rest. I was planting lavender in the windowsill. The sun was out, and for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting on her call. I signed my new lease with a steady hand. The keys felt small in my palm, light, like freedom. The landlord, a kind woman with ocean-gray hair and sun-kissed skin, handed them over with a smile. "It's quiet here. Just gulls, waves, and time," she said. I nodded. That was exactly what I wanted. Time at last that belonged to no one but me. The house wasn't much. One bedroom, a wraparound porch, and windows that stayed open most of the day. The breeze carried salt and wildflowers. I didn't need more than that. I'd had enough noise in my life, enough aching silences disguised as family, enough gasps masked by guilt, enough waiting for calls that never came. Now, I woke up to sunlight and the rhythmic hush of the sea. I took my tea in a real mug, no lids, no fast sips between errands. I read books without looking at the clock. I tended to a stubborn little garden out back, where basil thrived and tomatoes fought their way toward the sun. I planted lavender along the porch and watched it bloom in stubborn defiance of the rocky soil. Most days, I walked to the Elder Resource Center 3 blocks away. They'd asked if I'd be willing to volunteer. I said yes. I helped others fill out insurance forms, taught them how to track their accounts, how to recognize signs of financial abuse. I told them what I hadn't told myself in time. You are not a burden just because you need help. They listened. And sometimes they cried. And sometimes we laughed. There was one woman, Elena, late 70s, sharp as a tack, who told me, "You're not just helping us, you're undoing something. Something we've all carried too long." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just held her hand for a moment. Sometimes that was enough. I never said Valerie's name, not once, not in the workshops, not in the stories I shared, not even in the quiet moments alone with the wind curling through my kitchen window. But I kept the folder Halverson gave me, tucked in a drawer, beneath the linens, proof that I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't imagined it all, that I had the right to walk away and still call it love. One afternoon, while I was rinsing fresh herbs in the sink, my phone buzzed. I hadn't heard from Valerie since the trial. "Valerie, I miss you, Mom. I know I messed up. I didn't know how to fix things. I'm sorry. Can we talk?" I stared at the message. Not angry, not broken, just still. It wasn't that I didn't care. Love doesn't vanish just because it's mishandled. It softens, thins, stretches into something that no longer fits, like a sweater you can't bring yourself to throw away, but can't wear either. I placed the phone face down on the counter. The herbs in my hands smelled fresh and sharp. I kept washing. That night, I made soup. I lit a candle, not for morning, but for quiet. I framed a new photo above the mantel. The ocean, soft and endless, no people in it, just the sky, the sea, and me. She chose her dog. I chose peace.